Mark Wahlberg explains why his new film's Father Stu directly opposes cancel culture. And this is kind of one of those things where I don't want to make this all about religion, but me and Mary have had some discussions about religion since she's been here. And as someone who is not inherently religious, sees the value in religion, but found this article really interesting because it's more about redemption than it is about cancel culture. It feels like they use the term cancel culture in the article, but it feels like they're doing that more because it's a term that people...
Well, the whole point of cancel culture is to deperson someone so that redemption is not possible.
Exactly.
It can never come back. They're just buried forever.
They hate the idea of redemption.
Yes,
people who
they're
are
like
proponents
forever
of these
condemned.
behaviors.
And the whole point of the movie that he's making is the opposite of that.
Yep.
It's the redemption of somebody, the turning of his life around.
So it says, we'll just start at this part. It says, part of why this is Faithwire's, I can't even pronounce this person's name. I'll just say Phillips is his last name. He then notes, part of why cancel culture is so toxic is because, as Wahlberg said, there's nothing worse than when somebody realizes that people don't care because it causes them to lose hope and to have no faith. In contrast, Wahlberg says, you cannot give up on people. The actor then observed, and people are so quick to turn their backs on people, and negativity as a whole has just been amplified in a way that it's really hard to remind people of the importance of loving and supporting people. People can do incredible things. I feel like these days, the people who would disagree with him fall into that category of believing any type of positivity or forgiveness would be seen as naive, and they don't want to be seen as naive. Does that make sense? Like they see,
there is an inherent cynicism that
that's
people who are
extremely
hopeful
cynical
are like gullible and foolish. I
Yes.
think that is a theme that comes through a lot of media today. Yeah.
Do you ever have moments of that where you feel more cynical? Does that come through to you too?
What do you mean?
Sure, yeah.
Do you have moments where you're like on that level of cynicism where you're like, it's not even worth it anymore? Or you believe that people should just be cast out for good without hope of redemption? I imagine nobody here has that feeling, but cynicism is a very easy pattern to fall into nowadays.
I think there are things that I am cynical about, but I don't think that cynicism and not trusting people or having people who you don't feel like you should have to tolerate are the same thing. In my opinion, I don't know how you feel about that, Mary.
There are a lot of public apologies these days, and I'm cynical about them because people are apologizing often for offenses that, well, it's their apology that is allowing the next person to get dogpiled. And in another situation, if someone else were in their shoes, they would join the dog pile. That's what I'm cynical about.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with accepting an apology or allowing someone to redeem themselves, but cancel culture, it's like targeting someone for an offense that was actually not an offense at all.
And I struggle with the idea of apologies these days so much because most of the people that are asking for it don't actually want an apology. They just want something to hold over you. So I struggle with, that's a level of like not wanting to, maybe that's a lack of humility, but it's also like a defense mechanism. Like, why would I apologize to people that don't actually look to forgive me? They just want proof that I did something wrong.
Well, on an
Is it feel like
interpersonal
submission?
level, that's not always the case, but with a mob of people on the internet, that's always the case.
Yes.
It's not that they're not interested in your response.
They're not. They're only interested in
It's
you admitting
complete
your guilt.
power tripping. Yeah.
He says, he elaborates, if this movie really changes people's lives and motivates them and inspires them to do great things, all I really got to do is convert one person and I get to go through the pearly gates. And I asked Mary before the show, I said, is that true? If that's, that's a good thing to hear from somebody in this industry, an industry that we talk about a lot as being kind of evil and demonic. And I mean, I hate that word because I find a lot of hyperbole in that, but I see that quite often. There's a lot of, not hate, but there's a lot of like evil in Hollywood. And there's a lot of negativity in how we see Hollywood because it's a very sin-filled industry, as we all know. So it's interesting to me that he's able to maintain a religious perspective in such a non-religious industry, just like we talked about yesterday, how hard it was for him just to get this movie made.
Right. And unless you're completely anti-fragile because you have enough money and enough personal relationships like him, then you will be ostracized for saying anything remotely like this.
Yep. Says, I would like to have, so he says, if I can continue to do that in a major way, remaining humble and just doing it all for the right reasons, then I would much rather have that be my legacy than be the biggest box office star in the world. I would like to have a legacy that I had a positive impact on people, Wahlberg concluded. He made similar, so there was one more paragraph here that I really, really liked where he talks about, basically, he's talking about one of the things that I struggle with doing the show. I am one of those people that says, who am I to judge a lot? Like, even like just then, we were just talking about Ezra Miller, and I'm asking questions about what's going on, about why the studio is putting up with what he's doing. Is there financial stake that's so important that makes his behavior worth tolerating? Mm-hmm. But I don't want, at the same time, I'm one of those people that says, I don't want to feel like I'm judging someone on a whim, if that makes sense. So I struggle with that when we do this job because we're reporting on stuff, we're talking about stuff. I'm sharing my opinion, but it doesn't mean I think less of that person because I don't know that person's actual internal struggle. I don't know what their life is going through. And to be frank, most of what we see is very curated, and it's not like we've seen everything they've experienced that's brought them to that point.
But if you did read something about a celebrity or a director or a public figure and you thought less of them, like, would that be bad?
No, I guess not. I shouldn't say think less of. I should say that I'm one of the people that leans into giving people the benefit of the doubt most of the time. Miller seems to have been, done enough where he's lost most people's ability to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I err on the side of giving most people the benefit of the doubt most of the time because I'm, I don't want to be, I wouldn't want people judging me based on my worst actions. So I hesitate to judge heavily based on somebody else's, the worst choices they've ever made, I guess. That's just something that what they're talking about in this article, it spoke to me in that way. Mm-hmm. It says, when he asked to describe, okay, where was that other paragraph? He said, yeah, especially when you have stuff in your own closet that you have to worry about. For me personally, I know I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've been focused since I was 16, 17 years old, turning my life around. And that is a daily task that I have to continue to work on. So there's humility there and learning. And he says, we all have our moments. It's not my place to judge. I know that all the work that I am doing is to hopefully when it's my day to be judged, that I get a pass and I get to go up. I'm sorry. So he's focused on heaven, and he's focused on making it to where he wants to go when he passes on. And I think we could all do with a little bit of introspection about what we want from our legacies and what we want in our lives. And I don't see a lot of that in most of these industries. When we have these discussions here, I think like I could do better to bring these things up, like to look at yourself inwards and say, am I asking good questions? Are we talking about the right aspects of this story? And it shouldn't all just be fodder, but it should all be worth asking yourself whether you're making a positive impact with the stuff you're discussing.
Yeah. I think this story and the making of Father Stu is interesting to talk about, especially in contrast to a lot of the ways we view studios right now. I mean, we've talked about mergers between, Amazon and Time Warner and all kinds of things and said, they're buying this product. How are they going to make money? Their bottom line is their objective is making money. And it's interesting to hear from someone who is like, no, I have a deeper philosophical, theological reason for producing this kind of work. And personally, I like mission-driven work.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I'm not Catholic. I am religious, and I'm still interested in seeing this come together because I think we do see a lot of efforts in today's culture to make content that is contrary to the, I don't want to condemn people who are driven to make money because I think there is a level of practicality in that.
If it's your business, it's your business. You can't have a
multi-million-dollar movie studio that makes no money. That's not going to work. But the same way that Daily Wire is starting to produce a lot of their own content. We're seeing this sort of, a major Hollywood player delve into faith-based movies. It's interesting to see how our view of motivation in producing movies is changing.
He says, Wahlberg replies, people need to have faith and hope. Young men need to know what it's like to be a real man. He said that's what he wants people to learn from Father Stu. That was interesting because it feels like most of the movies today, and I don't mean to be like all encompassing in my judgment, but it feels like most of it is focused more female in the entertainment industry these days. A lot of it having to do with like women control the money in the household anyway, so all things are marketed towards women.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, that's true, and a lot of studies show us that. What I actually think is interesting about that is, number one, are you telling us you read Jordan Peterson books? And also, Wahlberg has a bunch of daughters, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have sons too, but he is filling something he feels like is needed widely, even though it may not apply directly to his own personal experience.
I would hope that it's just so interesting because we're in an age now where movies are being filled with messages. It just happens to be messages that we feel are being done clumsily and shoved down our throats. Whatever your social messaging is in these shows and these movies, it tends to be done in a divisive and impractical way that never feels organic or real. Whereas this is something like this is based on a true story. Haven't seen the movie yet. It comes out in about a week. Could be, I mean, for all we know, it could be bad. We don't know. The trailer looked really, really good. But like to see a wider variety of these types of messages is something that I'm okay with, because I never complain when they put these messages in other movies. I complain when they put them in there poorly. Like, I don't care what your message is. I care how artfully you implement it. So
see, I do care about the message. I think you are free to put whatever message you want in a film. It doesn't mean I have to tolerate and like all of the messages.
Well, I'm not saying I like it, but I'm saying I don't have a problem with it existing, but I am going to critique whether you do it well or not.
Sure. I mean, the other thing about this is, like, biopics are so... like, there's so many of them coming out right now, especially about companies or industry leaders. They have that one about the fake German heiress who, you know...
Inventing Anna.
Like, there's a lot of them. And I actually am happy to see one come out about, like, someone from the Catholic Church, because I think the Catholic Church is often used by Hollywood to have so many negative depictions. And again, like, we could debate whether that's fair or not. I know there are a lot of, you know... the Catholic Church is not without its scandals or without its errors, but it is interesting to see the one-off depiction of a priest, especially since, as far as I know, Mary, you may have to correct me here, but like most, the Catholic Church is in need of priests. They have a shortage of them, from what I understand.
A lot of them are getting imported from Africa and South America, but then there's also priest shortages in those continents as well.
Yeah,
so,
all over the church. The church is sort of without priests.
I think messaging that shows the priesthood is not this alien thing that is inaccessible to us, could maybe encourage young men to look into it.
Yeah.
And I think what it boils down to is that when he's talking about cancel culture, they're just talking about the inability to forgive people for making mistakes. Oftentimes not the worst thing in the world. We're not all talking about crimes. We're talking about somebody saying something rude to someone else 15 years ago, or they made tweets that were awful. This happened. We talked about this yesterday about the one who was supposed to take over for Teen Vogue. And she said some, vaguely crappy stuff about another group of people that she clearly wasn't a part of, like 10 years
stupid jokes about Asian people or something
that she clearly made when she was much, much younger. And for that, she loses out on the opportunity of a lifetime to edit a magazine she'd always read.
The thing about cancel culture is that it's meant to be a death. Like, it's meant to be final, and it's meant to completely delete you as far as we can. And I think that's so different from Christianity, which is often depicted as this very authoritative, rule, like, heavy, controlling theology, which I don't think it is. I think that we are not exposed. I mean, unless you attend church and you grew up in that kind of faith, like, you don't realize that really the message is forgiveness and redemption, and cancel culture does not offer a path to redemption. And without that, like, we're just hitting this wall of, like, deleting someone or trying to, and then being upset when they come back. Like, we have to know what to do with people because everyone is imperfect. When
Louis C.K. came back, I was like, this is what they don't want you to come back. They want you dead. They want you homeless in a box on the side of the road. They don't want you to be able to make money. They don't want you to be able to thrive. They don't want you to be able to have any type of enjoyment, happiness, or...
Well, they want you to never have to invade a space that they feel as though they are entitled to again.
And that's all spaces to them. They believe that they have the moral high ground and have the right to all spaces.
Was quietly sitting in a Denny's somewhere they didn't care about, they wouldn't care. But if he is in some way influencing a culture, they being this very vague description of people,
the royal they,
the royal they,
the royal they,
then it's a problem, right?
And Wahlberg, So I pulled this up because I was like, okay, so the world's been like Hollywood's been good to him. He's got a mansion that's being sold for nearly $90 million, which I'm going to put on screen just so you guys can see that picture. I apologize, Spotify listeners, if you could see this place that he
Should
built.
we describe it
If
to
you
them?
were a premium member on YouTube,
Yes.
an elite viewer.
If you were one of our YouTube followers. So basically, this is like a castle with like another smaller castle and a third smaller castle. And he bought the property for 8.5. Like he bought the land, not the property, for 8.25.
He built this house?
He built the house.
So
It says,
fun.
it says the actors listed his compound, which includes a main mega mansion. I like that there's something more than mansion, that it goes beyond that you can have a mega mansion.
Well, anybody in this area could have a
Yes.
mansion.
With 12 bedrooms and 20 baths and a separate guest house. I'm guessing that's what the smaller mansion is. For a whopping $87.5 million. He first bought the land in 2009 for $8.25 million and spent years building the home. It's over 30,500 square feet of living space covered in European limestone.
It's crazy because that's how much the property is valued, and then he has furniture and art and clothing and belongings like inside of that. Like I cannot imagine if this had a fire, what the insurance claim would be like.
Yes, it says it's literally Los Angeles luxury defined. So I just like, clearly somebody like, I feel like a lot of people, one thing that I notice for like, this is a wide scale, like a panoramic view observation of people in Hollywood. The few people that are religious is gratitude is a very big part of who they are. They're grateful for what they've accomplished and they give credit to God. They give credit to Jesus, but they, not just that, but they feel this feeling that I feel a lot of other people don't. They don't feel gratitude because, if you're an activist, you're always an activist and it never ends. Mm-hmm. So you never can just stop and appreciate what you have because there's always something else you need to ruin for other people.
It's interesting to contrast someone like Mark Wahlberg with someone like Megan Rapinoe.
Yes.
USA
Soccer.
I'll just say for the whoever's listening. She's the women's soccer player. I don't know if she's retiring yet, and she won the Olympics, I think, in. It's hard to keep track of them now. Yeah. But she was like, her soundbite went crazy because she's holding her trophy and screaming, "I deserve this," which like maybe she does, but like I didn't think it made her more appealing. I don't know.
And one thing that I thought was interesting about this that was worth checking on was I found a website that I think is my new favorite website where you can look at celebrity.
Is it faithwire.com?
No, it's not faithwire.com. It's Look to the Stars, the world of celebrity giving. It's basically all the charities that they go to. And I went down like a 9 to 10 person rabbit hole, like just looking. So I looked up like where that like the charities that he gives to. So he clearly does give back. It says 15 charities, and this is likely old, so there's probably more since then. So like he gives to charities like the Boys and Girls Club of America, St. Francis Food Pantries and Shelters. The Art of Elysium is a big one in that industry. The Los Angeles Police Department Memorial Fund. So, giving back is clearly important to him, whether it's through the messaging of his movies, whether it's through showing gratitude and giving back to charity. The more cynical side of me, if this was anybody else, would say it's about, it's the tax write-off, but when people do well, I think we should not just point out when the Ezra Millers, make mistakes, but when somebody else is saying something that we agree with, or we think that that's a message worth, I guess the term would be signal boosting still. I would like to get back to pushing more positive messages and not just focus on the hate bait that everyone likes to cover because it's so easy.
Yeah. I think also, he said it in his interview, like he prioritizes his conduct and the values that he lives by, right? Like I think so often we look at people like this and we say like, oh, it's so great that they're doing so many wonderful things, and the truth is that like we are all capable of making the choice to make better decisions every day. And I think we look at Hollywood as this place of impulsivity and indulgence, and that's true for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be. In some ways we have come to tolerate that, and so that's what it is. Yeah.
And for me, like I feel like I'm making a decision just by covering something that has a more positive spin to it. That's me doing something positive because I'm not putting only critique and negativity in the world. I'm also showing, giving time to stuff that I think is important to cover that's positive, and I think that matters. Is that funny? Is that wrong? Am I doing?
No, yeah, just I'm glad we're moving on from the death and destruction and Mark Wahlberg, he just seems like a very intentional person. He seems like he takes great care in what he does. And I'm really glad that he's trying to reach young men with a message that is counteracting, the other messaging that at the best you're annoying, at the worst you're threatening.
Yeah.
And
So Mark Wahlberg for Jordan Peterson when they make the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely read his books.
He-
We all agree here, right?
Yeah, yeah, he has. So, like, when we get 12 Rules for Life, the movie,
Forward by Mark Wahlberg.
yes, then we get Mark Wahlberg to play Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them talk.
That would be interesting.
Does Mark Wahlberg have a podcast? That's the real
He
question.
probably does. I mean,
would listen
so
to
many,
that.
so many
Enough
of them
free
do.
time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, where's he moving to? You showed us his mansion. Like,
They didn't say where he's moving to.
oh my god,
Probably Texas.
Well, if you have a place that huge, you're living in 5% of it anyway.
Right, but like, is he staying in California? You going somewhere else?
Probably going
I
to
saw
Texas.
this article, and I have no idea how confirmed it was that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are leaving for Nashville, and it
That
was
makes
like,
sense. Wasn't she country?
she's like
Was
an
she?
actress, right?
Mm.
He's Canadian.
Or he's no? I'm
I
saying
thought she was like a New Yorker, but
No, I'm
she's
thinking-
she's
I'm-
from California.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Never mind.
No,
Oh.
she's not as far as I know. But like, I also am like, oh, you know how there are lots of conservative content creators and movie producers out in Nashville now? Why are you guys going there? Just speculation on my end.
Could be. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.